All right, well, a lot going on with the coronavirus. What's it called? COVID-19. COVID-19 it is called now. Hundreds of Americans quarantined on a cruise ship in Japan for more than a week due to that coronavirus outbreak will have a chance to be evacuated. In fact, 2 planes landed in the United States overnight with quarantine cruise passengers. They'll be living at military bases for the next 2 weeks. But this is just the beginning, we're told. Talking to doctors that I know and talking to people that have a pretty good connection what's happening, they say the worst of this won't come to the U.S. for another 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months, and it'll be here in much more stark terms than it is today. Rick Heller is here, an expert on the spread of infectious disease. He's also a founder of Wello, the first hands-free self-service temperature screening device. He's been in contact with U.S. health officials to help contain the virus. Rick, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. So give me your assessment of where we are today with what's going on in China, what's really happening, not what we're being told, but what you think is really happening and what's happening here in the U.S. How big is this threat?
Well, it's here, it's real. Yeah, as we also know, it's very small in proportion to flu. We're losing about 25,000 so far Americans due to influenza. And here we are at probably 50 or 60,000 sufferers of coronavirus, maybe 1,200, we guess 1,500 deaths as a result of it. So the current status is that it's growing and that it could approach as contagious and as proliferate as the flu is worldwide.
So is this easier to spread around or about the same as the flu? You mentioned the flu a couple times, and I realize the flu takes thousands of lives annually on the planet. But with the number of people being infected by the coronavirus, even though it has a low fatality rate, just the mass tonnage of numbers could be significant, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's at the beginning. You know, flu had this 1918 thing we shouldn't trivialize. I mean, it's 50 million people worldwide, bigger than it killed more people than all the wars up to that time in human history. So, you know, we shouldn't put the flu just to the side that easily. It has been kicking around, mutating, finding different animals from which it's harbored, and then it just goes around the planet seasonally. So in the southern hemisphere in Australia, what we call summer is really their winter. What our winter is really their summer. So it kind of bounces back and forth in terms of volume. But moving to coronavirus, there is 2 schools of thought, that one it's seasonal and the other it's not. We have models that show that it's seasonal. So that means that the good news, if you can call it that, is that it's here right now because of not the cold of winter, but because of the dryness of winter. And winter brings in this top-level amount of moisture called dew point. So you can't get too much moist in that. And then commercial buildings take all that air and they exchange it 6 times an hour. And when you're all done, you get this relative humidity. We're all used to thinking of outside, but indoor, you get this relative humidity of 15% or so. That makes the spread. When a sick person comes to work, that makes the spread all the more likely. Our devices are in child care, so we see this constantly. We see this in manufacturing where our devices are, but mostly in hospitals.
Let me touch base on that with you, Rick. Let me touch base with this. You are the founder of Wello, Wello, Wello. Rick, what is Wello? What do you guys do every day?
We're Wello Inc., WELLOINC, one word, .com. What we make is a device. It's a kiosk. You walk up to it, or a desktop. You walk up to it. It's very rugged, steel-based looking, maybe laptop you could call it, and it gets you with the voice. It tells you to get yourself lined up 12 inches from the screen, and then within about 2 or 3 seconds, it takes your adjusted internal core body temperature. So you know if you're 97.8 degrees Fahrenheit or 36.5 degrees centigrade, it tells you that instantly. It moves that information, de-identifies it. We don't know who you are, but it keeps the information, and it can kind of tell the population health, if you will.
So it gives a
if
core
you're
temperature.
not well, if you're contagious, you're going to have a fever, and if you have a fever, you're going to probably be contagious, and then they ask you to please come back as soon as you recover.
Right. So you talk about, and we've talked about this, Rick, and I'd like you to help me with this. Rick Heller here from Wello, Inc. This is not a particularly deadly virus, per se. Now, 1,500 people have died, give or take. Tens of thousands of people are infected worldwide. Why then all these quarantines of millions of people in China? Why then all the quarantines of the people here in the U.S. being quarantined for 14 days? I feel like we're not being told the whole story. Maybe we are, but it just seems like there's this incredible reaction to this virus that, by all accounts, is not that stout. Why are we taking these extraordinary measures?
Okay, so what you say is right, but you have to look at this thing in the very beginnings of potential pandemic, and it is 10 times more deadly than influenza per capita. So if 100 people get it, 2 people die. In influenza, if 100 people get it, if you will, 0.2 people die, maybe 1,000. 2 in 1,000 for influenza, and 2 in 100 for this. But once again, influenza is seasonal, so you won't see the volume of people. You'll see 1/100th, 1/10th of the amount of influenza in June or July that you'll see in January, February. So we're at the height of both the beginning of the uptick in coronavirus and the already epidemic levels of influenza. So that's kind of why people are really concerned. They're really looking out further. And I think China has done what they do. I mean, culturally, so far as disseminating information, they've done what they can do, and they're inviting the World Health Organization in now. A bit late, but they're still inviting everybody in for transparency to see that
Sure.
Whatever is going on, they understand.
And compared to SARS or MERS, those were far higher fatality rates than what we're seeing here. But again, it's the gross tonnage, the potential that you could have hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people infected with the coronavirus, COVID-19. That's the concern.
Well, it changes every week. So right now we just beat SARS. If you're looking for a box score, COVID-19 has just beaten SARS in terms of the number of sufferers, and soon it might be the death count. It's not as deadly as SARS was. 17 years ago, SARS ended by the summer. I'm not saying that COVID-19 is going to be able to do that because it's at such a rapid rate right now, but it's possible. And it's possible what the president said, which is it gets warmer, which isn't, it's close to the idea, but what happens is it actually gets moister. And it gets moister, believe it or not, particularly indoors, as it gets moister, it's harder for the virus to spread. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of them mostly scientific and physics.
Well, Rick, I greatly appreciate it. Tell the folks where they can find out more about your company that you founded.
Thank you. Wello, Inc., WELLOINC.com. Make a device that keeps, effectively, we help keep sick people away from work and child care and hospitals, particularly in sensitive areas,
right,
where you could spread.
Rick Heller, good conversation. Brings some sanity to it, which I appreciate, and some common sense. Thank you, Rick.
Be well.
Greatly appreciate it. Be well yourself. Good advice.